Hello, beautiful soul. I am Korinna, your human design and alignment guide.
And I am Skylar Shea, your personal energetic guide, intuitive cheerleader, and high-level professional coach.
And welcome to Raise Your Freak. We created this podcast because we are driven to live to our fullest potential and want to share our experiences and obsessions with the frequency-curious individuals out there. We go live every Friday at 11:11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Zoom, so you can be part of the conversation.
I'm so excited about all of this because I love podcasts, but I always find myself wanting to ask questions. By offering you the opportunity to join us live, this means you can ask your questions in real time.
Each week, you can expect various conversations regarding all things human frequency, as well as support to help you integrate.
We understand the importance of tending to your frequency and engaging in topics as it helps you along your path to expansion and alignment.
Our goal is to help you feel a part of a community as you navigate your journey through this lifetime.
We look forward to connecting with you every week live at our Zoom headquarters, on YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
I think we've covered everything, Skylar.
I think so too.
Okay, let's dive in.
Welcome!
Hi, everyone. How's everybody doing? Everyone doing? Skylar, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you. I'm so happy to be here. And
Me too.
talking about what we're talking about today, thoughts, all things thoughts. I'm
Yes.
excited with what that means. Do you want to kick us off on what you've realized and learned over the years around the power of your own thoughts?
Ooh, absolutely. One of the biggest things I've learned, and certainly with the help of certain books, The Untethered Soul, The Surrender Experiment, all that, Eckhart Tolle, Joe Dispenza, all that is becoming an observer of what your thoughts are. I think that's such an empowering tool, because once you start having an awareness of what your mind is saying, what it's saying about you, what it's saying about life, what it's saying about others, usually a lot of it is self-criticisms. I don't think anyone is void of that, whether you're male or female or whatever. Like there's a constant loop of something your mind is talking about. Sometimes it's jumbled, sometimes it really all depends. So becoming that observer has definitely been one of the more empowering things that has helped me along the way. And having that mindfulness and like quiet it has been really important. But what's been really cool is learning the science behind it, and learning the science of the why and the how our brain affects our reality. What about you?
So yeah, for myself, I feel like it was a natural progression of searching for more support for myself, knowing that not knowing, but thinking I was out of alignment, not knowing what that even means, but just like searching for more for myself. And then that allowed me to find Reiki and start utilizing Reiki, but start practicing Reiki. And about 2 years of offering Reiki, what I was realizing was like, okay, beautiful. Like someone's energy is reset when they leave me, but then maybe a week goes by, a couple weeks go by, and they're noticing the same pattern. After that, I was like, okay, I acknowledge from that power of our thoughts are so important. And if I'm not supporting someone with their thought processes, then it's not going to last within their energy system. And so that's why and how I started learning hypnotherapy. And hypnotherapy is one of the best ways in order to help actually shift the neurons in our brain, which are literally like our thought patterns, our thought processes. They're like highways in our brain that kind of connect everything. Our thoughts send out vibrations, and some of the vibrations, positive vibrations, negative thoughts, negative vibrations. And so if we're in a negative thought loop, that's going to then impact our energetic vibration, which means that impacts our emotions, that impacts our physical body. And so what that then does is, if we have these negative thoughts, if we're spinning with these negative thoughts, we might feel anxiety, we might feel fear, we might feel stress, or something might have happened that might make us feel these things. And then our thoughts create this perpetuating feeling of, oh, I am anxious, I am this, I am that. And when you say I am, that means that you are defining that energy state. You are defining that that is you, that's your version. And so if we don't address these more negative emotions, if we don't help ourselves move through them and help ourselves to shift them, this will eventually create physical imbalances within our body as well. And all of that perpetuates what is happening in our outside world. And you have a really great perspective on this that you have recently learned. So I'd love for you to share that perspective.
Yes, absolutely. So it's that idea that our external reality is, starts with our internal reality. And so the mind is always the mind wants to solve problems. Think of the mind as like a computer database. So it's here to solve problems, and it's here to confirm what it thinks it already knows. It's surveying, are we safe? Is there a problem we need to solve? Do we need to hunt? Do we need to be on the lookout? I feel fear. Why am I feeling fear? Let's survey for fear, that type of thing. And there's this really cool podcast. So Theo Vaughn had Tony Robbins on, and there's a clip that was kind of circulating around social media. So hopefully everyone has seen it, where Tony Robbins goes to Theo, okay, so take a look around this room. And I welcome you guys to do it right now. Take a look around this room and look for everything that is brown. So go, just look, see, okay, what's brown? What's brown in your room? What's brown in your room? And then he goes, okay, what was red? And then Theo's just like, oh, and he's like, you didn't see red, did you? Because you were looking for brown. Your brain was looking for brown. And Theo's like, yep. And then he's like, chances are you saw some things that maybe were not quite brown, but you're like, well, that's brown enough. And Theo's like, yeah, like that burgundy thing over there. He's like, that wasn't really brown, but I made it brown. He's like, exactly. Your brain is trying. Yeah. So it's like your brain is trying to be like, well, that's brown enough. So that confirms my theory of all the brown things. He's like, now actually look for red things, So this idea that your brain is just going to be like, okay, I'm going to take this and assume for it to be true to confirm my hypothesis that I'm not good enough, that I'm not smart enough, that I'm not wealthy enough, that I lack this or lack that. So I think that's so important, and why the importance of paying attention to our thoughts, the importance of paying attention to what are our thoughts trying to tell us? What am I trying to search for? Oh, I think my partner's cheating on me. So you're going to look at all the different things to confirm that hypothesis. And that's the manipulation of the mind and the manipulation of the thoughts. That's why it's so important to be paying attention.
So someone in the chat group just said, RAS, like it's reticular activating system. So this is like, yeah, it's science, it's truth. Like there is a system within our brain that allows us to acknowledge the things that we are being asked to focus on. So your brain also unconsciously takes control over that too. And this is sort of where we can talk about conditioned beliefs and helping us to uncondition these thought patterns or these thought beliefs. And so what happens sometimes too is that if we were told something when we were younger, and so perfect example, maybe not even told something, but you picked up something when you were younger. So let's say you were someone that was like a big dreamer. You loved dreaming about things, but every time you dreamt something that you wanted to happen, you were met with disappointment. You were met with a sense that it wasn't going to happen. Or you were told by your family, that's crazy to dream that, you could never get that. Just basically told not to dream. So fast forward to 20 years later, as an adult, you don't see the importance of dreaming because you think that dreaming, that sense of disillusion, creates a sense of disappointment. And in fact, and in my reality and what I've experienced before in life is the dreams that we have, the dreams that we desire are our gateway to our next choices, our next evolution. And what I know to be true is that if you can dream it, if you can believe it, you can have it. So dreaming it is the first step though. And then it's starting to believe it, which is the next step. And then it's taking the actions and having the opportunities come in to allow for that dream to come through. But you have to start dreaming in order to get yourself out of the current reality that you're in. And that's just maybe a bit of a side tangent, but a perfect example or way that some people get stuck. Some people feel as though like, well, what's the point of dreaming? It's just going to leave me disillusioned. Well, there's a reason why social media is exploding right now with all of these younger people talking about being delulu and the importance of being delusional, because being delusional actually gets you to the spaces that you want to be and motivates you to move into those spaces. And if you don't have that idea or that dream to begin with, then you don't have anything that's momenting you. That it's like the gasoline that starts the car.
Yeah. Yeah. You had talked about this in our rituals podcast, where you start with the intention, right? And it goes up into the 4D. And then from there, then it starts to take shape. But if you're not, if you're not putting it up into the 4D, if you're not just like putting it out there, I love also, is it Elizabeth Gilbert, Big Magic? It's
Yes.
the idea like there's a cloud, there's an energy beyond us that has all of these sources of inspiration. Well, where do those sources of inspiration come from? They come from individuals. Like, wouldn't it be nice if there was this, or this would be cool to have this? And then we have this energetic cloud above us that we can tap into. And the key is to truly and genuinely believe, heart, body, soul, that it's meant for you, and not this like wishful, oh, it would be nice if, but I could never. So that's where the resistance begins, right? Think about manifestation, think about law of attraction. You need to be in that vibrational frequency. You need to genuinely, truly know it's yours. This is mine. And having that connection is so important, and making sure that this brain is not like in the background trying to manipulate or change what you feel is true.
And so one thing I feel like is misunderstood is this concept of, let's say you've had the dream and you're starting to see the dream. So then the next thing that happens is some inspired action starts to come through, some inspiration. Well, that inspiration is your intuition sort of opening up and being like, okay, that's the path you want to go. Like, let me give you some breadcrumbs to go that way. But what happens within our own energy system when we start to embrace or acknowledge something new is, and especially if it's a place that we haven't been to before, it can feel unsafe. So that intuitive download that you have, that step that you have, it might feel good in the first like 2 seconds. But as soon as the brain takes time to actually ingest it, automatically, if it feels like it's an unsafe territory, your fight or flight response starts to move in and starts to tell you that it's unsafe, that it's fearful. That isn't your intuition. That's a response system that's occurring. I think the biggest struggle that some people can have sometimes is feeling that because that fight or flight response is coming in, it's like, oh, my intuition's telling me not to go that way. And in fact, that's not the case. It's just you have the intuitive insight. The ego then steps in to help you dissect the information that's coming through. And the ego's telling you, you haven't been there before. That's unsafe for you. And then limiting beliefs come in, and then unconscious thought patterns come in. And then all of a sudden dysregulation in your body starts to occur. The best and most important thing for you to do is help yourself find regulation so that you can move through that fear to start stepping into that inspired action. And as you make that move to step into that inspired action, then a new idea comes in, and then another idea comes in, and then an opportunity lands, and then something else opens up. So you have to break through that barrier, and there's probably going to be multiple fear-based barriers. And so learning how to support that dysregulation, support that fear, allows you to actually start taking control of those thoughts and those more negative thoughts that might be there slowing you down.
Yeah, this might be a little bit of a tangent, but you know, we're really moving away from a society where it used to be all about us and we, and you need to do this because think of war, think of all of these where we are told to do things, and the big governments or whoever it is, they use fear to get us to do something. So we are coming from generations of a lot of fear, a lot of that generational trauma of fear, of lack, of if you don't do this, then this will be the outcome and it's not good. We just saw this a few years ago of this use of trying to use fear to, and oh, well, you need to do this for your family or for your society or for this that, and that fear, it sticks with us. Fear is so powerful. And so what we are doing in this time frame is we're moving towards more of a personal authority where we're saying, wait a second, this doesn't feel right for me, so I don't want to do it. So we're now living in a time frame where these systems are starting to break down, these systems that have been in control of us for so long, because we're like saying, this doesn't feel right. This isn't correct for me. And we're moving through these generational traumas. So a big aspect of it is like, sometimes you can get really frustrated, like, oh, my mind, I keep living in this loop of lack and of there's not enough or fear or whatever the case may be. Remember, this is a compassionate ride. Like, it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to be like, you're going to wake up one day and be like, oh, well, I'm fully cured and healed. Everything is energy. So we're carrying energy from hundreds, if not thousands of years of a different energy, one that's really restrictive in a sense and a lot of fear based. So it's not an overnight process, but giving yourself grace and doing the work, as they say, can really help you move and shift that energy. So, you know, they say your parents' ceiling is your floor, so you're rising, and then, you know, the generation after you can rise, right?
So talking about like how, so let's say, okay, people are listening and they're like, okay, yeah, I get it. Like, yeah, there's definitely some thought patterns and maybe even unconscious thought patterns that are kind of creating the state that I'm in right now and preventing me from being where I want to be. So one of the biggest like hit things that is suggested that we can do on our own is affirmations. But sometimes the more you say something, it's not working. It's not. And so it's like, why isn't this working?
Yeah, it's really cool because I was listening to this podcast the other day, A Life of Greatness, and she had a scientist by the name of Greg Braden on, and what he was talking about really hit me. And so we all, as we know, we have neurons in our brain. And the new science, as he called it, coming from 1991, has shared that we actually have neurons in our heart. And there's about 400 of these specialized cells that can feel, think, remember, and experience independently of the neurons in the brain. And so he says, when we hurt or when we suffer and we try to change that through the power of our thoughts, it can help, but it always feels like something is missing. And it's really cool because if you've ever heard of Abraham Hicks at all, they talk a lot about how it's all about how you feel. So it's the vibration of your heart. What's the vibration of your heart? So if your vibration of your heart is like not quite in it, but here you are thinking and speaking. And don't get me wrong, the spoken word, like we know in prayer, in mantras, in chanting, is incredibly powerful. That is a vibration in itself. And that is such an important part of the entire circle or the entire process. But there's also how we feel. It's also like, do we genuinely feel like we're worthy of love, that we're worthy of abundance, that we're worthy of whatever the case may be. So checking in with yourself and having an honest conversation. And oftentimes that looks like, oh, it's not quite right. So then the work begins there to get these two into alignment.
So one thing that I suggest to my clients to support with this is, let's say you're noticing you've got a same negative loop happening, and let's say it's around finances. Let's say you have like a big bill coming up and you're feeling a lot of stress towards it and you don't know how you're going to pay it, and every time you think about it, you feel the dysregulation, you feel the fear and the worry in your heart or in your gut or wherever it is. So what I suggest is consider something positive that you actually do believe. So for me, I do believe that money gets to come easily and effortlessly. That might not work for everyone. So for myself, though, as soon as I notice either the dysregulation in the body, maybe it starts first, or maybe the thought process starts first, as soon as I notice it, I come to the affirmation or the phrase that works best for me. And I just keep repeating it in my head and with my hands on wherever it feels dysregulated, so that I can start creating a pattern interrupt. And that is an immediate pattern interrupt for the neural pathways in your brain, because basically sometimes it's the energy that comes first, or sometimes it's the thought that comes first that starts creating the dysregulation. If you sit in that dysregulation, that's you just allowing for the thought to take over your reality and for that to be your truth. But what this pattern interrupt allows you to do, and if you're really, it doesn't even necessarily have to do with the same topic. It can be something else. It can be like, I am worthy of feeling good. I'm worthy of feeling good. Like something that at a conscious level you believe. You might not be believing it at an unconscious level. That's why this loop is continuing to happen. But you are helping to start to create some neural pathway shifts for you. And then if you do feel like it's something that is perpetually keeps coming up, that's when maybe searching and receiving some of that unconscious support through hypnotherapy or through like meditation can be really helpful too. The thing with hypnotherapy that's a little bit more powerful for actually changing the pathways in the brain is that it is acknowledging that there is a certain way to get you into a deep state of relaxation that allows for that unconscious brain to open up. And then the specific affirmations or words that you might be saying to yourself and knowing is truth at a conscious level, we're putting them into the unconscious. We're actually making the unconscious believe them, shifting those neural pathways so that your energy can actually be reset, so that the body can start actually operating and working in a way that isn't always dysregulated around this one topic or this one concept. And this is why I've created the Transmission Club, because essentially it's weekly. It's like, okay, what are the things that we, especially as women, are dealing with and having to decondition ourselves around? So people pleasing is such a perfect example of an aspect of how we as women have been conditioned to believe that our needs are not as important as the needs of everyone else around us. And that has gotten us to places of burnout, of depression, of depletion, of dissatisfaction with life, of not living your truth. And so this is a really good place to help to start acknowledging that you have needs. A lot of moms especially, and a lot of women's don't even, like, if I ask a client sometimes like, oh, like, what are your needs? They can easily explain what their husband's needs are. They can easily, or partner's needs are. They can easily explain what their children's needs were that morning. And then you ask them and they're like, oh, I don't know. I haven't eaten in 24 hours. I barely slept last night and I got to go do this next. What are my needs? I don't have needs. What do you mean? This is why deconditioning is such a hot topic right now. Like human design. Let's talk a little bit about why that is so important in helping with the conditioning aspects and of shifting our thought patterns.
Absolutely. What I love about it the most, especially when it comes to beliefs, is So the Ajna center is the center of our beliefs. And when you have it defined, typically what that means is
Where's the
you're
ajna?
taking,
Where's
oh,
the
sorry,
ajna?
the third eye. Yeah, the
Okay.
third eye center. So right below the crown, it's a third eye set, the third eye center. So it's our beliefs, it's our thoughts, it's what we believe is to be true. And when you have the center undefined, what that looks like is you're taking in energy from those that have the center defined, and you take it in and you amplify it. A great example that I like to use is so often people that have this center undefined, they actually go through a lot of belief changes within their life. So, for example, you grow up in a household and maybe there was a certain belief, and then you leave that household, and then your belief, suddenly you're clear from that energy. And then you're like, wait a second, what do I actually believe in? And then you'll go and explore that. And I say that from personal experience of and having that center undefined and having to, and it took a long time. It took many years for me to really define, okay, what's my connection with source? What do I believe in? What do I believe in, in myself and stuff? So understanding your human design and understanding that anywhere that you're white, you take in energy and you amplify it. But that also means that you can be conditioned here. And conditioning is not necessarily bad. It's unavoidable. It's a part of the human existence. Where we are white is where we are meant to learn, where we're meant to grow, and where we are meant to expand. This is where we go to school. This is where we get our PhD. And so I think that when we look at our charts and we see that, we're like, oh, I'm not lacking anything. It's not like I'm void here. I'm actually supposed to be wise here. And that reframe can really help you see, the world in a different light. I think the big thing that you're really talking about, and I think that's really important, is this idea of shadow work. And I read somewhere where it's like how you can tell who's going to buy self-help books is people who buy self-help books. And the idea is like, well, if it works, why do they keep doing it? And it's like, well, it's just like saying, oh, you're going to go to the gym one time, be like, okay, I'm good. It's work. It takes time. It's a muscle that you have to work on. And the brain is the exact same way. It takes time. We have to, every day, you need to be conscious of what are the stories I'm telling myself? What are my thoughts saying today? What things am I thinking that my mind is trying to affirm?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really important. It's not a one-off. It's not a one and done. It's an evolution. And so having a lot of grace for yourself as you navigate this human experience and understand like you're growing here and you're really expanding. And that's fun. It can be really fun.
One practice that you could start with today, and I know that I've already brought this up in different podcasts, but it's so pertinent for this conversation, especially that it's almost like 90% of our thoughts did not originate with us. That
Mm-hmm.
means they came from the projections of others. They came from our ancestors. They came from society. They came from movies we watched growing up. So you don't have to know where they all came from, but as you start observing your thoughts and acknowledging the ones that you don't actually want to believe or that you don't want to hold on to, all you have to do, and the only pattern interrupt you need to create for yourself, is just simply say, I give it back. That
Mm-hmm.
might feel bad for some people because they might know exactly who they're giving it back to. And they're like, I don't want them to have to re-deal with that. And especially as if you're an empath, you've been taught by yourself in your own environmental situations to take on a lot of that stuff, to allow for others to not have to feel so that you can help them heal. And it's all happening unconsciously. But for the empath, it might feel really opposite for you to be releasing it and to be giving it back. So you don't have to say give it back. You can give it out, give it up, give it to the heavens. But just acknowledging that it's not yours, you do not have to hold on to it, and therefore you can release it, you can leave it. And so with the financial example I gave earlier, if you don't have necessarily an affirmation that you totally believe, such as I'm worthy or money comes to me effortlessly, you can just say, I give it back. I give it back. Like these belief systems or these fears that you have around money, they didn't originate with you. Like your circumstance might be creating that situation, but the creation of your circumstance probably didn't originate with you. It's due to other belief systems that are programming in the background. So that can be a really good one to support you with. I think it was in Gaia. It was an interview that a gentleman was having on Gaia with this perception of the give it back method. And he suggested to like practice this for 3 days. So the first day, by the end of the day, you're probably going to feel exhausted because it's a lot of mental work that you're giving back a lot. You're realizing, holy shit, I have a whole lot of thoughts that I don't want to have. The second day, it becomes a little bit more repetitive. And then by the third day, there's a massive shift in your own energy that you start to feel. You start feeling lighter. You start acknowledging other thoughts coming through, other perceptions coming through. You're releasing and making space for what you're deciding is not yours to hold on to anymore. We just did in the transmission club for last week, the session that we did, or for this week, the session we did was for cord cutting. This is a idea and a concept to talk about later a little bit more, but we all have energy cords, and these energy cords can actually be more like thought cords. And so it's also the acknowledgement and the realization that people's projections can create feelings within you that then you get to decide and choose to release and to move away from. So you have a lot more control than you realize if you become conscious of it.
I love it. Let's talk about the power of gratitude, because thank you more, please. It was like, I want to say it was like 10 years ago, and I started following, her name is now Bella Lively on Instagram. And she was my very first introduction to manifestation and that idea of the power of your thoughts. And the idea of gratitude and the vibration of gratitude, and the power of that. So anytime you're experiencing something and you want more of that, having that gratitude, thank you more, please. Spending time every single day, just finding gratitude. It was interesting because when I found her, I was really in a place in my life where I was feeling very frustrated. I was feeling very ignored by the universe. I had a lot of negative thoughts. Like, it's interesting because I think back on then, and I remember everything was negative. Life was happening to me. It was not me creating my life. It was, no, life is happening to me. And now realize that was the perpetual story. And then my mind was looking for that affirmation. But I made that choice. I started listening to her podcast, and this idea of thank you more, please, having gratitude and having more positive thoughts. And it was a conscious choice that I made. Okay, I'm going to start switching my thoughts. And it took a while. Like, it took, I'd say probably a year and a half, 2 years to fully really get out of the negative spiral of my thought patterns into a higher, more positive vibrational thought pattern. And let me tell you, that's when things really started, like physically in my material world, really started to shift for me, that power of gratitude.
At the beginning of this episode, I talked about like the frequency of words. And so the reason why it's gratitude that you're talking about rather than abundance or I can't even think of any other words right now, but they don't have the same vibrational frequency. Gratitude is one of the highest vibrational frequencies. So if you are in a place of lack, which lack is a low vibrational frequency, then focusing on something that you are grateful for and focusing on more of that gratitude, that helps to start shifting your vibration. Gabby Bernstein has a book all about this, of getting you, I forget, it's like it's a superpower book or something. And it's all about how to shift you into higher frequencies and higher vibrations, and acknowledging when you're at a lower vibration and how to move yourself away from that and move yourself super attractor. Yeah. Thank you, Megan. And how to move yourself out of that. And so it was in her book that she actually, I think she had labeled the different vibrational frequencies of each of these different words, and gratitude is at the top. And that's why I had a client once who, I can't remember what the word that he resonated with more. And it was simply because of his own conditioning. And like when he was younger, he had his own conditioning that we had to work around so that vibration of gratitude could feel more supportive for him. And that was just a perfect example in my studies and realization of like, oh, like the power of your thoughts, that like something might not work for you because you have other thought patterns that are coming in that are shifting that. So that's okay, but like let's work with that. Let's move through that. Let's get you into a place where we can actually allow for these tools to be supporting you, because if they aren't supporting you, there's probably a belief system that's preventing that from happening, which is a conversation we're definitely going to have more of later on about actual beliefs versus thoughts, because those beliefs that can be really, really powerful and something we have to decondition as well.
Yeah. I go in and out of meditations where it's like, ooh, I feel like I'm really needing that meditative support, and then I'll kind of get out of it. But even if it's like 5 minutes or 10 minutes, or when I go on runs, I kind of just separate from my thoughts, and I pay attention to what's going on, and I let them go and I let them slide. And just that idea of like, again, you are empowered to shift that focus to see what is going on within you. And you have that ability to be like, okay, there's a thought, I'm going to let that go. Okay, there's another thought, I'm going to let that go. So sometimes when we have the rat race where we feel like, oh my God, like I can't control my thoughts, they're so overwhelming, just get into stillness. And sometimes it's easier than others. At the beginning, it might be really hard, but always know that you do have that power just to quiet the mind, even if it's just for 5 seconds. The impact that really does have on, wow, look at my thoughts and look what's going on and look what I'm telling myself and look what I'm trying to seek out in the world. And I'm gonna change that today.
Which again is why ritual can be so important too, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
ritual really, which is the topic of conversation we did last week, but it can be really helpful to get you into a state of greater alignment for yourself. Make it like whatever that ritual is, whatever that thing is that is making you feel good. And I want to reiterate, like, this isn't about spiritual bypassing by any means, because you're actually becoming conscious of what's actually happening. So you can't
Yes.
be bypassing in order to be conscious about this. But what you are doing is choosing something different for yourself.
I love that. I love that. You're choosing something different for yourself. The one thing that we all have is free will. You constantly have a choice. You always have a choice. Sometimes it feels overwhelming, but at the end of the day, you always do have that choice. So that's so good.
Should we pull a card before
Yes.
complete? Okay. Should we have an intention for the card other than
I love it when it's like, what does the group need to hear today, or any messages that the group needs to.
here?
So while Skylar does that, we've been starting this ritual of pulling from the Akashic Records tarot deck that we both have. We've both been exploring the Akashic Records. And so we like to pull a card at the end of every podcast episode, just to be supportive and fun and maybe receive a message that we need to hear.
Ooh, I don't know if we've gotten this one yet. It's the Two of Forces, the Willow.
Oh, I love willow trees.
Look how magical that is.
Yeah, with the sun like shining from behind it, as
Yeah,
any willow tree does. For some reason, you always seem to catch it when the sun is behind it. It's so beautiful.
crazy. Okay, Two of Forces. A big, beautiful willow tree stands in the summer sun. This stately tree is strong and flexible, and this card upright is telling you that you are too. The willow spreads its roots deep and wide, creating a strong foundation that is capable of standing up to anything. Now is the time for you to stand tall and feel the support of the earth beneath your feet. This card indicates a time of calm, so enjoy the peaceful energy now. It also signifies a time of power, perfect for reinforcing your foundation in your work, in your family, and in your spirit, and in the depth of your belief in yourself. Just like the willow, you have a peaceful strength, drawn from the waters of your soul and extending through all eternity. Stand confidently in your truth, take the actions that support the growth of all things wonderful in your life, and know that you are powerful. So just closing your eyes for a second, take a deep breath in and feel yourself plant energetic roots through the bottom of your feet, moving down to the very depths of the earth and tapping the resources you need. Notice the strength you feel rising up from this profound source of energy.
I love that. So
It was
good.
pretty on point, I think, for this
Yeah.
conversation today.
Yeah, a really good affirmation just to remind ourselves that like connection, right? And that we're rooted and we are all a part of the earth and everyone is a part of the earth. We're all a part of one another. So yeah, really beautiful.
And get out of your, this is the last thing I'll
Yeah.
say, but like get out of your head and into your body.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
when
So good.
your body, when your body's the thing that's communicating to you, your body this is the wisdom that is being expressed to you. Your soul constantly is trying to communicate with you through your body. So if you're having heavy emotions, if you're having negative emotions, don't let your brain try to tell you why you're having those emotions. Instead, sit with the emotions and ask the emotions, like, what is this? What is this about? What is this sharing with me right now? Feel what your body is trying to express to you. There's likely, if it's heavy emotions, if it's heart emotions, like there might be something that needs to be shifted in your life right now. And don't avoid it. Don't run away from it. Feel what the body is trying to say to you so that you can actually move through it. So getting out of our thoughts and into our body.
I love it. What a beautiful way to conclude this podcast episode.
Oh,
Thank
you
you,
all
Skylar.
for joining live. Thank you, Korinna. This is the best. I'm so grateful for our Fridays.
I know, so good.
Have a great day.
Okay, bye everybody.
Bye.